South Alabama with a defensive clampdown on Arkansas State. It's Locked On Sunbelt.
You are Locked On Sunbelt, your daily podcast on the Sunbelt Conference, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, Dave Schultz, Locked On Sunbelt, your teams every day. We'll actually preview a little bit of tonight's action, Troy and JMU with must-wins, and a little bit of a side note. It's a little bit of a side show. The Cajuns and their ongoing deal with trying to get a mascot. It is laughable at this point. Obviously, they don't want one. I don't understand why. Did get a chance to talk to Merlin Eikenberry, the JMU baseball coach. Will do that probably for Friday's episode. So we will do that. And I think I have one more coach in the can trying to get football coaches on. I'm going to now try to get the football coaches on in between now and spring ball, or maybe closer to spring ball. We'll see. Anyways, this was quite the basketball game. Cajuns. Jaguars win 60-56. And twice Arkansas State went cold. The first time they actually got out to a 9-1 lead. And for whatever reason, Barry Dunning Jr. just wanted to shoot the ball. Looks like Miles Corey has lost all kinds of confidence trying to shoot a three. Anyways, Arkansas State got out to a 9-1 lead, and then they went cold. They scored 4 points over the next 10 minutes and 9 seconds. They led 9-1 with 15:51 to go in the first half. And then they were down 21-13. They didn't get their 16th point until 10 minutes and 9 seconds later, like 5:42 in the first half. That's how long it took them to score 6 more points. And I'll give Arkansas State credit. That game could have easily gotten away from them. So they were playing some good defense as well. We know South Alabama is not a offensive juggernaut. Even when playing good defense, they usually only score 70 points. Even when their threes are falling, they don't score 80 on a regular basis, right? They score about 70 points plus. So it's actually a good job by Arkansas State not to fall behind by double digits and to stay in the ball game. And they were just down by 4 points at half, 25-21. And then boom, it flipped. Let me see here. Was it JJ Wheat? One of the Jaguars, I say accidentally, kind of the way I grew up playing. Although, I was the 13th man on a 12-man JV basketball team. It was on Fuyusero, I'm not sure that's how you pronounce his name. I'm sorry. But on one of the Jaguars swung his elbow and hit Ford in the jaw. It was a foul. All right. That's, used to not be the way the game was called, but it was a foul now. Okay. So it was South Alabama missed a shot, had the ball back, and the Jaguar player got tied up, swung his elbow, hit Ford in the jaw. So not only does Ford hit 2 free throws, but Arkansas State gets the ball and hits a shot. So instead of South Alabama trying to extend the lead to 6 points or 7, Arkansas State ends up tying the ball game up. And Arkansas State actually was in control of this game. I think they went up 6 in the second half. Their largest lead was 36-30. So if you take that from the beginning of the half, they went on a 15-5 run. All right. They went from down 4 to up 6. Then they started to go cold. Okay. They scored their 40th point of the ball game with 10:34 to go. I'm sorry. No, 10:51 to go. They, Izaiyah Nelson, who had a monster game, have to imagine this was a career game. He had a monster game. We will get to that because he did have a great ball game. He was the one guy who actually did have a fantastic ball game between the two teams. He had an amazing ball game. He made a free throw that gave Arkansas State a 40-37 lead. Okay. They didn't get to fit. That was with 10:51 to go. They didn't get to 50 until Pinion hit a shot with 36 seconds to go. They got to 52. So it took them over 10 minutes to break the 50 mark. That's how cold they got. And yet they technically still had a shot with a missed free throw and maybe a tip-in. They still actually had a shot at the end of the ball game. Again, not a great offensive ball game for either team. The difference was in this game, turnovers and free throws. Let's be honest, if South Alabama hits their free throws, this is not a 4-point ball game. The free throws are 11 out of 22, but I think 5 were the front ends of one-on-ones, or at least 3 of them were. So that's like 6 free throws. So this very easily could have been a double-digit lead, but it wasn't. And the other big thing was turnovers. And Arkansas State had 19 of them, only 6 in the second half, but that means 13 in the first half. Now, they only have 11 per game, which is pretty good. All right. When you're the kind of team that likes to get up and running and scoring a lot of points, you're going to have some turnovers. But we know South Alabama does a great job at forcing teams to have a ton of turnovers, and that's what they did. And I've been on this show, complaining about South Alabama not making the adjustments. Arkansas State just didn't make the adjustments. They were having all kinds of issues finding spots to shoot, and they wouldn't shoot. I don't know why. They had open shots, but they would not shoot. A couple of times, Taron Todd, he did shoot, but it really wasn't in the offense. Like, he just came down and shot the ball, which is not a great shot. Now, one time he came down, faked a pass and shot it, which got the defense moving, and I thought that was a good shot. Missed, but I thought that happened to be a good shot. All right. Pinion actually, 5 of 15. Some of those threes were deep. All right. Those were not high percentage threes. I know the logo at the bank is huge, but he was not near the 3-point line on a lot of those threes, including the one like at the end of the half that brought them closer. He still had 17 points. Nelson had a monster ball game, 23 rebounds for Nelson to go along with 16 points. Just to make sure we understand how big that number is, 23 rebounds. South Alabama had 32 total. So, Izaiyah Nelson had a monster game. Kobe Julian just, again, 8 points on 3 of 8 shooting. Ford, 1 of 4 shooting, 8 points. Todd, 3 of 11 shooting, 0 of 7 from 3. Here was the thing where, talking about the turnovers, and I looked at it. I don't know what they shot. I think they shot just under 40% in the first half. Arkansas State did. But when I looked at it, they were at like 43% in the first half. In that 10 minutes, I thought they were shooting like 25%. But because they kept on turning the ball over, their shooting percentage wasn't awful. I'm sure it wasn't great for the game. It was not great for the game, 36%, because they kept on missing, and it got bad. They stopped turning the ball over. You're right. They turned the ball over 13 times in the first half, 6 times in the second half. So instead of turning the ball over, they just missed. For South Alabama, Barry Dunning had a lot of putbacks. He's very good. He's not a 3-point shooter, although he did make his 1 3-pointer. He's very good at that mid-range jumper, and he's very good at the curl free throw, line elbow shot, and just was not making them. I bet you a bunch of his shots today were putbacks. He was 5 out of 10, and I bet you a bunch of those were just putback dunks and layups off of rebounds. He did grab 8 rebounds. He led the way with 14 points. Judah Brown off the bench had 10. Ormiston has been very good for Jaguars, but he only had 7 points. Miles Corey, again, he's lost his confidence. Finishes 4 of 5 from the free throw line. 8 points. Only played 20 minutes. He did not play a lot in the second half. That's very interesting. I don't know if he started the second half, but he didn't play a whole lot in the second half compared to, say, a Barry Dunning who played 36 minutes in the ball game, and a lot of other guys, Cooper, Wheat, and Brown, all played 25 or over. So very interesting situation there. Maybe a bad matchup. I don't know, but something that I just picked up. All right, so quickly, standings wise, South Alabama is now in first place. They sweep Arkansas State. Arkansas State is in a bad way. They actually did lose to JMU. They split with Troy. And what a roller coaster it's been for South Alabama, right? They had control. They looked like they were going to get a number 1 or 2 seed. Then it didn't look like they were going to get a top 4 seed. And now they are in great shape once again to get a number 1 or a 2 seed. Commentators said they're going to stay there in Jonesboro, a little treacherous travel. It's been really brutal weather. They're taking on Texas State, who I did believe they're right now in the middle of beating Monroe. They will beat Monroe on a Wednesday night. Can't have a letdown. Texas State almost beat them. They needed overtime to beat Texas State last time. So that's a big ball game for South Alabama, and they could really put themselves in a big spot to land that first or second seed. And Arkansas State is all of a sudden, I mean, they're going from the number 1 seed to maybe not even a top 4 seed. Could that be a spot? We'll see. Troy and James Madison, South Alabama beats out James Madison, so they don't have to worry about them. And they split with Troy. That's not going to matter so much right now. Kara Ritchie figured it out from actually part of the Red Wolves football coverage and hosts a show in Jonesboro middays. And so she figured it out. She had South Alabama 1 and James Madison 2 heading into Wednesday's action. So South Alabama beats out Troy somehow on the tiebreaker. So if they went out, pretty interesting. And James Madison, again, does not have that difficult of a schedule. We'll see if somehow App State and or Marshall can knock Arkansas State out of there. But really interesting job there by South Alabama, who did a tremendous job defensively. And Arkansas State, every time you heard, the TV guys tell you, Arkansas State hasn't scored in 3 minutes. Arkansas State hasn't scored in 4 minutes. Arkansas State's gone cold in 3 minutes. That was like the whole second half. Didn't hear it in the first half. Like he said, they've only scored 4 points in 10 minutes. Didn't say that, but it was quite the ball game. And South Alabama has put themselves back in the in line for top 2 seeds. So good job by Richie Riley and the guys heading down to San Marcos to take on Texas State. All right, we will preview Thursday's action coming up, and then we'll talk about the Cajuns. Apparently do not want a mascot. It is mind-boggling. I don't really get it whatsoever. We'll talk about it. All right, at the end. Let me first tell you about Roy. Attention, Sunbelt fans. The future of college sports is here, and it is transparent. Before the Roy app, NIL negotiations often happened under the table, and fans didn't have a clear way to directly support the athletes they love. Now with Roy, you get to be a part of the change and support Sunbelt athletes in the most transparent way possible. Roy, the NIL app, allows you to choose the player you want to support, decide how much to contribute, receive exclusive content from the athletes you back, and the best part, if your player transfers, you get your money back. It's a risk-free way to show your support. The Roy app is giving fans control. No more uncertainty. Now you can provide transparent, impactful support and help shape the team and the future of college sports with your contributions. Download the Roy app now from the App Store and start backing Sunbelt school athletes today the way they deserve, with transparency, trust, and real impact. This is the future of college sports. Join it now by downloading Roy and supporting your favorite players. All right, Dave Schultz, Locked On Sunbelt, your teams every day. That was a little bit of a long segment. This one will be short, and we'll go longer with the Cajuns mascot. Do appreciate, again, Merlin Eikenberry, JMU coach. We'll probably have that on Friday's episode. Almost got Logain's the App State coach. He had a press conference a couple of days ago. Couldn't quite squeeze him in on Wednesday, but we're trying. All right, we will try. I actually have 2 days off in a couple of weeks. Maybe we can do it then. I figure, but spring practice may be starting then, although that's usually every other day. So maybe I can get them in during those times. Okay. So must wins now for JMU and Troy to try and keep up, right? All right. So Troy's got the Cajuns. Troy, a 15.5 point favorite. It's just not been a year for the Cajuns. All of a sudden, though, they're still 6-8. It's a very odd year. The Cajuns 9-18 overall, but 6-8 in the Sun Belt. Troy had that huge win at Arkansas State. By the way, Arkansas State has all of a sudden lost 4 out of 5 ball games. Their only win in the last 5 games is a blowout win against Southern Miss. So I'm not sure what has gone wrong there. Troy has actually won. They were actually playing very well. They have won, let's see here, 6 out of 8. They lost by 3 at JMU and at Miami of Ohio. And at the time, I don't think Miami of Ohio had lost at home. So they have been playing very well. They do have a blowout win at Louisiana. They went to Arkansas State and came away with that 71-70 victory. And now they're hosting the Cajuns tonight, 7 p.m. local time. And they will try to once again tie South Alabama for first place in the Sun Belt. At the same time, JMU is hosting Georgia State. And all of a sudden, Georgia State playing a little bit better, right? This is in Harrisonburg. And Georgia State playing a little bit better. So this is not the layup that we had thought it may have been, a couple of weeks ago. Georgia State can score. They don't necessarily play great defense. JMU allows about 10 less points per game than Georgia State does. But all of a sudden, Georgia State is playing a little bit better. They've won 4 in a row to JMU's 2 in a row. But again, JMU, all of a sudden, again, they are almost a 10-point favorite in this ball game, a game they should win, and they would get closer to a semifinal appearance in the Sun Belt Sun Belt Conference tournament. Interestingly enough, Troy and Louisiana are actually, according to the worldwide leader, are playing at 6 p.m. Central Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. James Madison and Georgia State are playing at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. So interesting, okay? So those are the 2 games that have a chance to be in first place. App State still trying to get on Arkansas State's trail. They're hosting Georgia Southern. App State 9-5 in the Sun Belt. They're hosting Georgia Southern 6-8. Remember, all these teams are fighting for seeds. If you can't get a top 2 seed, a top 4 seed would be huge. And the less games you have to play, the better chance you have to make a run. So App State hosting Georgia Southern. They actually play a little bit early, 6:30 Eastern Time. App State is a 9.5-point spread. That's a lot for App State. App State usually doesn't beat anybody by like 10 points because they play defense and don't score a lot. Those games are usually a little bit closer. This is a little bit of a tricky one. Marshall going into Old Dominion. Marshall was looking really good until they went on the road and lost to both South Alabama and the Cajuns. Maybe they say don't lose the same game twice. They appeared to lose that same game twice. They lost to South Alabama in overtime, and then they went and lost to the Cajuns, and now they're going to play at Old Dominion, see if they can bounce back. Marshall, actually a 2.5-point favorite on the road in Norfolk, taking on the Monarchs. That's an early ball game, 5 p.m. Eastern Time, late Thursday afternoon, early Thursday evening. And to wrap it up, Southern Miss taking on Coastal Carolina. Southern Miss 5-9. Coastal Carolina looks like they're going to bring up the rear in the Sun Belt. They are 1-13. All right. Let's take a time out. We'll come back and talk about what a mess this Cajuns mascot thing is. It makes no sense. I'll give you my 2 cents when we come back. All right. We have got, as they say, 9 Sunbelt baseball coaches in the can. Again, Merlin Eikenberry, first time I had the chance to talk with him. Found out he's got a twin brother. He played for Chris Finwood of ODU, so we had a great conversation and actually coaches identical twins on his team now. And so we're almost more than halfway with all the Sunbelt baseball coaches. We'll see if we get a few more. Do have this weekend off. That's kind of nice. We did train at Wild Turkey the other day. So if you call that work, it's still considered work. And we're going to try and reach out to the football coaches, see if we can get them on as recruiting has died down. And now they're starting to get back into the regular routine of coaching and see if their schedules have lightened up a bit. So see if they can pop on and such. And now all of a sudden, baseball has started up. Cajuns with a huge come from behind win the other night against Texas Southern. That would have been a brutal loss. They were down 8-1 and 11-4. They did come back to win that ball game 14-11. 2-2 is not impressive, but it's much better than 1-3 to a team that had an RPI of 230. So baseball is underway. And of course, Southern Miss had a huge win over Mississippi State. So that is nice. Troy had a tough loss to Auburn. So, and I think Georgia Southern had a tough late loss to Georgia Tech. So baseball is in full swing. And so we're still trying to get some of these guys. Do appreciate all of the support. Keep those comments coming on the YouTube page, and I will be answering them. All right, Dave Schultz, Lockdown Sunbelt, your teams every day. It appears that the Louisiana Ragin Cajuns do not want a mascot. I think the name of the mascot when I got there was Caliente, and the problem was it kind of looked like, your mother's Halloween costume. It's, like a knitted scarecrow cut type of deal, kind of a pepper type of deal. And it went away a few years ago and hasn't come back. And so a local alumni, he's local now. He was in New York. I think he's like a Broadway guy or something like that, like a Broadway producer or something like that. But he's moved back to Louisiana. Corey Ewert, and he tried to put it together. Came on my show to explain it all. I guess there is an albino alligator on campus. All right, I'm going to be the first to tell you, if you have to explain the mascot, it's not a good mascot. All right. Gator is already someone else's mascot. I would not have done that, but he put in a lot of effort, a lot of time, his own money, had a GoFundMe thing. And the school newspaper finally came out and talked to the people in charge, not only of the athletic department, but of the school, and said, we're done with this. Almost like a cease and desist letter, not using any of the university's name, image, and likeness, if you will. And so whether or not you want an albino alligator to be the mascot is not the point. I wouldn't. It could be the red pepper. And for those who don't know, Cajuns are very sensitive to the water boy image. They don't want that. That's not their thing. I know the rest of us find that funny. They don't, so it's not going to be that. But I mean, you got Tabasco down the road. You can figure it out. All right, it can't be that difficult. Okay, you can build it. Design a new mascot, come up with it. It can't be that difficult. Okay, but for some reason they don't want it, and I don't know why. All right, so it happened to be I got this shirt on. All right, so we can even talk about this. Okay, so growing up, for those who don't know, you think that it was always the Syracuse Orange. It wasn't. All right. So back in the day, it was the Syracuse Orange Men. Okay. And some of that has to do with the religious people who founded Syracuse University and an ode to the Native Americans who inhabited central New York. The mascot for Syracuse was the Saltine Warrior. All right. So that's a little inside deal because Syracuse is the Salt City It's built on salt. Okay. So it was a Native American, and he was on a horseback, kind of like what they got at Florida State, and he was the saltine warrior. All right, so they did away with that way before any political correctness came in, and eventually they got rid of the orange men and just made orange, okay? And the branding has been amazing, right? Everybody knows the orange. You can't go anywhere out of it. I know that it helps that half of ESPN went to Syracuse University Newhouse. I get it. But you can't pay for that kind of branding. It comes. The amount of exposure you get with the mascot is amazing. And the amount of exposure that, the Mountaineer guy gets, and the Troy Trojan guy gets, and even the ULM Warhawk guy gets is amazing, especially when, you get those national TV games and the JMU Duke guy and what it could have been like if you were in New Orleans for Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday of the Super Bowl. You could have gotten a ton of exposure that would not have cost you a whole lot of money. That's what I'm thinking. So I don't understand. And it almost is like it's not our idea, so it's a bad idea. How a college institution does not want a mascot is beyond me. It's kind of like half-assing it, right? So somewhere along the way, in the last decade or so, this is a great example, Tulane has decided to go all in, all right? Tulane, look how much it costs to go to Tulane. It's expensive. It's a hoity-toity private school, and they pride themselves on being a hard school to get into and kind of boast about high academics, all right? They don't want to use athletics to promote their school, but then they realized that athletics is the front door to the institution. And so they did it with Willie Fritz, and now they've done it with John Sumrall, and they've gotten a ton of exposure over the last handful of years with that, and you can't buy that kind of exposure, right? No matter how good your academics are, unless you are Ivy League and you have those endowments, it does not matter, right? Again, the amount of money that Nick Saban brought in to Alabama, because now Alabama, who knew? I didn't know until I got to the state that Alabama has more kids from out of state because of Nick Saban, and they bring more money in. That you don't want to have a branding opportunity, and the amount of money that you would get from branding from your mascot, going around to all the elementary schools, to all the junior highs and the high schools, making appearances at all of the fundraisers in the area. You can't pay for that. All right. And the amount of money that it would cost you to have somebody, probably multiple people, you have multiple outfits because you can't be in all the places at one time. So you have multiple people doing it. And it's incredible exposure. And I don't understand why the Ragin' Cajuns don't want it. It kind of feels like to me, it's not our idea, so we don't want to do it. It feels foolish. Now, Corey has put in a lot of time and his own money, and the GoFundMe thing, is his own deal, and people are putting money into that. And of course, the Cajuns said, "Well, we'll just use it for scholarships." All right. It's really not a good look for the Cajuns. You got to come up with a mascot. This seems to be branding 101. I just feels that way, right? I mean, they do that in Bull Durham, hit the mascot. I mean, come on. I mean, doesn't it the amount of times you see the kids with the mascots at the games, whether it be minor league baseball or college football or college basketball, and you don't have that? Why would you not want that? I don't get it. So it seems like a missed opportunity. And now it feels like the Cajuns administration is dug in. Now we're not going to do it because we should do it, but we're not going to do it because it would make us look bad that we hadn't done it before. I don't know. I can't explain it. They haven't really explained it other than it's not going to be Corey Ewert's idea. That's it. That's all they explain. It's not going to be that idea. And that idea is done. They just haven't explained, because, and we need to wrap this up. We're going a little bit long. Because I got to U of L just as the heyday was going on, right? That Hudspeth had gotten to 2 of the first of the 4 straight New Orleans Bowls. Bob Marlin got to the NCAA tournament. Softball went to Oklahoma City my first year. Baseball was hosting a super regional for the first time, right? Cajuns had the Renaissance. Lamson Park had been redone. I think they've added the new scoreboard since, right? They've redone the Cajun Dome. I don't think that's helped basketball, but they've redone the Cajun Dome a couple of times. Soccer and track and field have been redone. And I think tennis moved. They built over where they play golf. And by the way, Theo Slyman and the Ragin Cajuns golf got it with an early season win. They got a new practice facility. So this athletic program has invested. And now the coup de grace, is that how you say that? The football stadium is going to open this year. And they're not going to have a mascot? How can you not invest in a mascot? That seems like the easiest thing going. You don't invest in a mascot? Get Tabasco to sponsor the mascot. You name it Tabasco, right? That's the name of the mascot or something. It can't be all that difficult. My goodness. You make it a red pepper, make it a green pepper. It can't be that difficult, right? You have multiple mascots. Right? Can't be that difficult, but it feels like the administration for the Cajuns is not doing it out of spite. And that feels not like a real mature way of doing things. And the amount of, not feedback, but the amount of exposure you're getting is exponentially more than it would cost you to have. The amount of cost that it would make the amount that it would cost you to make the outfit and the amount it would cost you to pay people to do it is pennies compared to what it would be to have one. And it's foolish that they don't. But that's what they got. That's what they're dealing with now in Lafayette. And it's foolish. It is just foolish. And it's egos getting in the way of what is really, really a good and simple idea. Again, I'm not a big fan of the albino alligator. That's just me. All right. Again, I grew up this fan, and we always had a thing is, what's a Hoya, right? Which is actually a rock, but they had a bulldog. That their whole thing, Hoya paranoia was a bulldog. No one knows what a Hoya is, but at least they had a mascot, and it was like a bulldog. All right. Right. It was a thing back then. Oh, Cajuns should have a mascot. It should be the easiest thing to get done. And if you started it now, you could easily get it done by the time the football team takes the field. And, by the time the football team takes the field in August or September. All right. Thank you so much for tuning in. Went a little bit long. Congratulations, South Alabama. Big win over Arkansas State. And again, thanks to Merlin Eichenberry for sitting down with me, the head coach of JMU. We will play that episode for Friday. Again, thank you so much for tuning in and supporting the channel. You've been watching Locked On Sunbelt, your teams every day. Have a tremendous Thursday. We'll talk to you again on Friday.